All right, I need attention on me. I need everybody follow along. Please, for the love of Pete, we have to learn how to divide. If you watch, I'm going to go through numerous problems. They're the problems that I've already given you to try and practice with. So just follow along. I'll put the link on this to YouTube, so when you go home tonight, you can watch it over and over and over again to make sure you know how to divide. I don't know how many of these 10 problems I'm going to go over, but I'm going to go over a lot of them. Okay, if you follow the same strategy, and those of you that were not understanding and didn't know if your answer was right, you weren't multiplying to check it, which makes me want to kick you in the shin, but I would never do that because I'm too nice.
Is
No,
that
not yet.
right?
All right, so let's look at the first problem, which is 1,054 divided by 2. We have 1,054 divided by 2. Now let's say I don't know my multiplication tables very well. I'm going to use my multiplication chart, which is right here. And I'm going to start with my row that starts with 2. And I'm going to go over and see if I can get a number closest to 1 without going over. So does 2 go into 1? No. Okay? Look at my multiplication, does 2 go into 10? Yes, the closest I can get without going over. That means my answer, my quotient, is going to have 3 digits. My quotient is going to have 3 digits. Once you find the first number it's going to go into, that tells you how many digits your quotient will have. As long as we're dividing whole numbers. We get to decimals, it may be a little different. So I know my answer right now has to have 3 digits. Okay? So now, I said it couldn't go into 10 until I learned my multiplication tables, which won't happen until you get to 3rd grade. So I know you're in 5th grade, but when you get to 3rd grade, you'll know your multiplication tables. Yes, that was sarcasm, because you should already know them. And if you don't, you should be practicing at home. I can look at my multiplication chart, start in the row that starts with 2. I go over until I find the number closest to 10 without going over 10, and that is exactly 10. I go straight to the top, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. Then I multiply this first digit in my quotient times my divisor. 5 times 2 is 10. I put my 10 down here, I subtract, I get 0. Okay? Now, I bring down the 5. Does 2 go into 5? Yes, because 5 is greater than 2. After I subtract, if my number is greater than my divisor, I know it's going to go into that. So now I go back to my multiplication chart until I finish 3rd grade, and I learn how to multiply like this. It needs to be like this. So until I learn that in 3rd grade, which I haven't done the math, but maybe 3rd grade's after 5th, I don't know. But if you wanted to practice your multiplication at home on the video games I posted on Edmodo, then you'll be ready for 3rd grade when you get in it. That would be awesome. So now I go over to my 2 row. I go until I find the number closest to 4 without going over, or closest to 5 without going over, and that's 4. I go straight up, and I see that 2 goes into 5 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. I put that down here, and I subtract. 5 subtract 4 gives me a difference of 1. Now, that difference is less than 2, so I know that's fine. If it was greater than 2, then I made a mistake up here. But it's less than 2. I bring down my 4. Again, I go back to my multiplication chart. I look at the row that starts with 2. I go over until I get as close to my difference as I can. And I get exactly 14. I go to the top, and I see that 2 goes into 14 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. I subtract, and I get 0. Now, once I get 0 and there's nothing else to bring down, then I'm done. And the ones we're working on today do not have any remainders. We'll work in remainders later. But they don't have any remainders. Now, because I care and I want to get my answers correct, I am going to do the opposite of division the inverse operation, which was one of your vocabulary words you wrote down, and I'm going to multiply to check and see if my answer is correct. So I'm going to multiply my quotient times my divisor, and I should get my dividend. So if I multiply 527 multiplied by 2, my product, if I did this problem right, my product should equal 1,054. So let's check again. If I don't know my multiplication tables, I can use the one provided, and I can multiply 2 times 7, which is 14. Put the 4 down, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So I get an answer of 1,054 as my product. 1,054 was also my dividend. Okay, let's look at the next one. And I'm going to talk you through step by step on every single problem so that it sticks in your mind. Watch it every night. Watch it 3 times a night. Practice your multiplication and division. Whatever it is to help you. But you have to know how to multiply 3-digit by 2-digit, and you have to be able to eventually divide 2 digits into 4 digits, or 2 digits into 3 digits. Okay? So I need you practicing these things at home, because we don't have time to just do them in class. Let's look at the second problem, which is 4,535 divided by 5. Now, does 5 go into 4? No, because 4 is smaller than 5. So I know it's not going to go into 4. Does 5 go into 45? That means my answer has to be 3 digits. My quotient, the answer, is going to have 3 digits. Okay? So now if I divide 5 into 45, I can go to my multiplication chart, the row that starts with 5, I go over until I find the number closest to 45 without going over, and it is 45. I go to the top, and that tells me this part of my quotient is 9. 9 times 5 is 45. I subtract, I get a 0, and I bring down a 3. Now I know I have to have a digit above the 3. So, can I divide 5 into 3? So it's going to go in 0 times. So if I put 0 up here, and then 0 times 5 is 0, and subtract, then I bring down my 5. I can only bring down one number at a time. So if it's not going to go into that number, I have to put the 0 to hold that place value, hold the zeros in the tens place, and then bring down the second number after I subtract. So once you subtract, you can only bring down one number at a time. And I ask myself, self, does 5 go into 35? And myself doesn't know, so I go over to the 5 row. I go over until I find the number closest to 35 without going over. In this case, it's exactly 35. I go up, and my answer is 7. So 7 goes up here above the 5. 7 times 5 is 35. I subtract, I get a 0. There's nothing else to bring down, so I'm not going to have any remainders. Because I want to get this right, because I care about my grade, because I want my mommy to buy me a popsicle, I'm going to check my answer with multiplication. If I multiply 907 by 5, my product should be 4,535, if I did it correctly. So let's try that. Seven times 5 is 35. Put down the 5, carry the tens place. 5 times 0 is 0. Add 3. 5 times 9 is 45. No place to carry it, so I just write them both down. So my answer is 4,535. That means my product is the same as my dividend. That means my answer is correct. As long as my math was correct when I multiplied, my answer is correct. Let's do one or two more. Then I'm going to put them back up on the screen. I'm going to give you time to do this. and then we're going to grade it together. Okay? The third problem is 4,725 divided by 7. Okay, does 7 go into 4? No. So I'm not going to have an answer or a digit over the 4. Does 7 go into 47? Yes, it does. I'm going to have a digit above the 7, a digit above the 2, and a digit above the 5. So I'm going to have a number that's in the hundreds. It's going to be greater than 99 and less than 999. I don't know how many times 7 goes into 47, so I look on my multiplication chart. 7, I want to go down the row until I find the number closest to 47 without going over. Well, there's 42 and there's 49. 49 is too big because I can't go over. That would make it difficult to subtract. So I go back to 42, I go straight up, and I see that it goes into 47 6 times. Hopefully I have everyone's attention. 6 times 7, I already know because I looked at my multiplication chart, was 42. I subtract 47, subtract 42 is 5. I bring down the next number, which is a 2. Now I know that that works because 52 is less than 7. So now I got to figure out how many times 7 goes into 52. I go to my multiplication chart again. I look at the 7 row. I go straight down, finding the number closest to 52 without going over, and I see it's 49. I go straight up, and I see 7 times 7 is 49. So my tens place is going to be a 7. 7 times 7 is 49. I subtract. 52 subtract 49 is 3. I bring down my next number. I cannot write this one. And I get 35. Now I need to see if 7 goes into 35. Until I get to 3rd grade, I haven't learned multiplication yet. I look at my multiplication chart. I start once again. I'm looking at my divisor, and I start with that row. I see how many times 7 goes into 35 without going over. Oh, look, it lands exactly on 35. I go up, and I see it's 5. So 7 goes into 35 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35. Once I subtract, my difference is 0. So that means I have 0 as a remainder. Let's check it. Because I want my mom to buy me some new socks. And I want to prove to her that I deserve the new socks by getting my answers correct. So we can do it by using the inverse operation. The inverse operation of division is multiplication. So we check it with multiplication. We have 675 multiplied by 7. My product, I want my product to equal the dividend here. My product should equal the dividend. And I know you know those words because product is one of your vocabulary words, and so is dividend. Okay, so now I multiply 7 times 5. I get 35. So far, so good. Carry my 3. 7 times 7 is 49. Add 3. 52. Carry the 5. So far, so good. 6 times 7 is, I don't know. So I go back and I look here. 6 times 7 is 42. Add the 5, and I get 4,725. One more. One more. And I'm telling you, by the time the day's over, you need to know how to do these. By the time the day's over. You have a question?
We do number 10.
You want to do number 10? Let's look at number 10. 7,092 divided by 9? All right, let's look at this one. Yes, ma'am.
No, on that last one, I got 695.
Well, if you multiply 695 by whatever the divisor was, you won't get the same answer. Okay?
Got it.
All right, well, let me look at it and see where the mistake was made, whether you made it or I made it. All right, does 9 go into 7?
No.
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 Does 9 go into 70?
Yes.
Yes. I know that because 70 is greater than 9. That means I'm going to have a 3-digit answer. I'm going to have a hundreds, a tens, and a ones in my answer. How many times is 9 going to 70? I don't know. So I go back and I look at my 9 row. I go down the 9 row or across the 9 row until I find the number closest to 70 without going over, and that is 63. So 9 times 7 is 63. 70 subtract 63 is 7. I bring down my 9. 9 times what is closest to 79? I go in my 9 row, and it's going to be 8, and that equals 72. 8 times 9 is 72. I subtract. 9 subtract 2 is not 8. 7. I bring down my 2. Now I already know that 9 times 8 is 72 because I've already done it once. So 9 times 8 is 72. 8 needs to be up here, and I get 72. Subtract 0. Because I want my mom to buy me one new shoe, I'm going to check it by multiplying because that's the inverse operation of division. So I'm going to find the product of 788 and 9. I want my product to be the same as my dividend. I know my multiplication because I've already done it here. Inverse means it's just the opposite. So I know 9 times 8 is 72 because I've already done that. The 2 in the ones place carry the 7. I know 9 times 8 is 72 because we've already done that. 72 plus 7 is 79. Carry the 7. I know that 9 times 7 is 63 because I've already done that. And so I have 63, I add 7, and I get 7,092. So these two answers match. Yes, ma'am.
Can we do number 5?
You would like to see number 5? I will be happy to work number 5. Because that is the kind of teacher I am. No, I can't let y'all get on video unless I have permission from your parents.
You're on video?
Because it's posted on the interweb. So 5 is 2,430 divided by 5. Okay. Does 5 go into 2? No, because 2 is smaller than 5. So until we start dividing, probably next year, into with decimal numbers, we're not going to be able to divide 5 into 2. Okay, 5 doesn't go into 2, so I'm not going to have a number there. 24 is greater than 5. So I know I'm going to have a hundreds place, a tens place, and a ones place. I'm going to divide 5 into 24 until I get to 3rd grade and I learn my multiplication tables. I use the one that's provided. I look at my 5 row. I go down my 5 row until I find the number closest to 24 without going over, and that is 20. Then I go to the top, and I see 5 times 4 is 20. Hopefully everyone's watching. I just said 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. I subtract, I get a difference of 4. I know that works because 4 is less than 5. If I subtract and get a number greater than my divisor, then I've done something wrong. Now I bring down the 3, and I have to see how many times 5 goes into 43. I go ahead and look at my multiplication chart. I know you're like, every time, why does he do that? Well, because many of you don't know your multiplication chart. I go to 5, I go down the road till I find the number closest to 43 without going over, and look, I have 40. I go to the top, and that's 8. That tells me 8 times 5 is 40. I subtract, I get a difference of 3. 3 is less than 5, so I know this number up here is correct. I bring down my next number, which is a 0, because I have to have something above the 0. I have to have something in my ones place. How many times does 5 go into 30? 6. 6 times 5 is 30. I subtract and I get 0. because I want my mom to buy me one new bicycle tire, I'm going to go ahead and check this by multiplying. I'm going to multiply 486 multiplied by 5. My product should equal my dividend, which is 2,430. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus 3 is 43. Carry the 4. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 4 is 24. So my answer is 2,430. Your homework between now and the end of,
September.
let's go, October, is to watch this 700 times a day and learn how to divide. Now, if we have a one-digit divisor, one-digit divisors you shouldn't get wrong because you can always use your multiplication chart. We get into two-digit divisors, we're going to have to do some estimating, we're going to have to do some guessing and checking. It's not difficult because you can still use your multiplication chart. We're just going to have to think a little bit more. We're never going to get past 2 digits in my divisor. Not this year. Eventually, hopefully, that you'll pass your grades and you'll get up to a grade high enough where you'll have greater than a 2-digit divisor. Now, I know some of you are crossing your fingers hoping you'll pass, but I'll do my best. Thank you all for watching this video. Let's all say, I am brilliant!
I am brilliant.
That was horrible. Let's all say, I am brilliant!
I am brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.